I love AI, and I'm so excited to be here today and share my thoughts on responsible AI, as well as hear some from you. I'll share my screen now, turn off my video. It's just easier that way. I'm working out of a laptop, so just bear with me for a second. All right, I'm going to go into presentation mode on this. So essentially today's topic, we'll just go over on a high level some definitions, principles, and I also want to take a little bit of time for self-reflection because it is a nuanced topic. Feel free to ask any questions related to today's topic by typing into the chat. If I know the answer, I'll tell you. If I don't, I'll do my best to find someone who knows and get back to you. This is an exciting time for AI, right? And those who are old like me, I bet it feels like when we first got internet into our hands. How lucky to be part of both these revolutions. For the coders in today's show, I especially commend you for showing up today for what might suspiciously feel like a workshop on how to take the fun out of AI. I assure you, as I'm very well aware, many of you here are teenagers, and you never stop hearing about responsibility on a daily basis in whatever you do. And now you got to think about AI. Well, yes, the future really is about AI, but without responsible AI, we may not have a future at all. So in the next hour, we'll see what I mean, talk about some things that I find very interesting as we have progressed from early times when machine learning, we used to learn machine learning at school, to now when AI is ubiquitous and it is getting cheaper and more accessible, and the potential seems limitless. So we are seeing AI everywhere. Every business manager currently is thinking about how to augment their daily business activities with AI. From HR, we might use AI to go through resumes, chatbots, predicting traffic, using GPT, aerial drones that are adapting to a terrain and learning to recognize poachers from rangers. We learned about that in an earlier discussion today with data science. They essentially can use these technologies to distinguish in deep savanna in Tanzania and help protect elephants. And that's seriously super cool. AI can and probably will be everywhere. To me, it feels like modern AI really started to take shape when machine learning gave way to some deep learning. So what is machine learning? It is the process of analyzing data and performing tasks, right? So you train your computer and you teach it similar to what an algorithm and a computer program might do. But deep learning seemed like it was a revolution in that when that happened, we first got to see massive amounts of data, cheap ways to store and retrieve them. And once we had that data, we were able to take that the classification that a human would have to do and let the machine self-correct itself. And this is like a famous example that people give of how a user would use using different techniques like classification and supervised learning, maybe some generative or discriminatory models, take an input and correct and train the machine to distinguish between, let's say, a cat or a dog. However, when you impose multiple coding and decoding layers on this, you get to take the human out, and now the machine is figuring out when you provide an input without any further involvement from a user, whether it's a cat or a dog. So that's generally seems to me what AI is going towards. And it all is happening because of the massive amounts of data that we have, and we have the ways to store and retrieve them. Of course, once we have data, we need a way to clean it. Structured data was easy, but something truly incredible called natural language processing gives machine learning ability to read, understand human languages, even mimic their behavior. AI apps rely on this type of machine learning and deep learning. The neural networks are actually built similarly to those that are in the human brain. Increasingly, AI systems are becoming less complex, cheaper, and real world applications of AI systems are increasing. So, this is all super exciting. Where does responsible AI come in? Well, first, we got to try and define it. It is pretty tricky because these words have a lot of meaning in them, and different organizations and and various institutions have tried to come up with ways to build these frameworks for the rest of the community. And so there's many frameworks out there. But simply put, I'd say any activity that we are all doing, right, that involves AI, that helps build trust with users, would be responsible AI. This is how Stanford AI blog describes it. And I would say the threshold is, can it distinguish between right and wrong, right? On the face of it, the principles that I have put out on the chart here looks great, right? Who wouldn't want transparency and privacy? But that's where we find that it gets nuanced, and people are really trying to figure this out completely. And there are some themes, general themes, that have been given to us to consider when building responsible AI. Those happen to be transparency, fairness, right? There should be accountability. There should be respect for privacy and explainability, which I really like, which means, can you explain what your AI model does to a human, right? And those, based on those, I found Google's AI principles to be easy to understand. Essentially, the idea is whenever we build anything, let's consider this as we're thinking about utilizing any generative or predictive model. So the Google AI principles are: AI should be socially beneficial, right? Let's see whether it can have impact. Let's see whether we can create AI by avoiding creating or reinforcing unfair biases. AI should be built and tested for safety. It should be accountable to people, first and foremost. It should incorporate privacy design principles. It should follow high standards of scientific excellence, and it should be made available in accordance with these principles. And I could go into the details of each one of these, but I think that will make this presentation even more boring. But maybe I can start by sharing, how do you build an AI, right? What is the steps to build an AI? And where does the human component really make a difference when we are building AI? Well, step one to building any solution, right, is to identify the problem. We all agree that it starts with us humans When we see a problem or we identify an opportunity, that's when we try to identify a solution. In this example, in our case, it'll be an AI solution. At this point, would you say it's important to understand where the problem solving is coming from? As coders, we generally look for a problem statement and run to find a solution. But when we are thinking AI, we might want to bake some questions like, what is the problem? What is the impact of this problem? Is it to help somebody? Is it to make money? Is it to gain power? Maybe it's driven by politics or ideology. Maybe you like your way of life and you feel threatened by climate change, let's say, or your boss says, hey, you're not selling enough. So, or people who don't look like you or talk like you are now becoming leaders and telling you what to do, and you don't like that. So what is this problem that we have identified, and what is the source of that problem? It's us humans that are making that decision. Once, let's say, we've identified the problem, we all know AI is all about data, data, data. AI needs data like humans need oxygen. And right data sources, it's so critical to get high quality data, right? So scientists spend time on improving the model itself. Like I mentioned earlier, structured data is great, but because we are humans and language is so messy, and indeed, as someone who's not a native English speaker, English is a very funny language. And don't even get me started on Tamil. It is unbelievably hard. So unstructured data, unfortunately, is more common. That's how humans evolved. It doesn't have patterns. It's not consistent. There's not much uniformity to be found. On top of that, we have data in MP3 audio files. It's in JPEG images, in infographics, it's in emails, it's in videos, it's everywhere. And all of that data is critical. So we need to clean it and process it and store the cleaned version before we can even begin to train the AI model. So my question to you is this: at that point, who is doing the cleaning and making these discriminations on what is clean and useful and what is not? There are some funny incidents that, when you start reading about the AI evolution, and one of those is like the famous example of a model that was trying to train AI on recognizing a wolf. And because most of the images that were fed to this model had snow in the background, when the input was a picture of a wolf without snow, it blew everybody's minds. So these types of things really do get the model in areas where with unintended consequences. So it would be really good to have an ethical and responsible data scientist who's making these decisions during the data cleaning activities. So once we've got the problem, once we've got the data, it's time to create algorithms and train the algorithms. So prediction or classification machine language algorithms instruct the model so it can learn from the data set. And then comes model accuracy, where model is trained to establish this model accuracy by setting thresholds. And that's again another point where we have to really be careful, right? For example, we may anecdotally know that there are more people who are poor, who are in prison systems. What would happen if a very creative analyst decided to train an AI model so it targeted customers in their bank or whatever with low income and set a so-called fraud score threshold on their accounts, right? It would be a very accurate model, but the unintended consequence of the bias that is introduced would be horrendous. Creating and training algorithms is a crucial step and it requires heavy human intervention. And unfortunately, whether we like it or not, it introduces biases, intentional or unintentional. And that's the reason why having these AI principles, following an AI framework, understanding risks of AI will be just the right amount of control to build a solution that is transparent, fair, explainable, all that other good stuff. So finally, there are other steps: choosing the right platform, the right programming language, deploying and tuning the model. But however, for the purposes of today's presentation, I just wanted to demonstrate that we can see that ethics has to be baked into the core idea of AI. I will go ahead and present some case studies of robots that I found during my research to be interesting, and maybe it will be interesting to you also. I'll start with, let's see here, some AI algorithms in the military, for example, that can complete missions with precision because they can analyze data, make decisions, and execute in hazardous environments independently. Of course, we want human personnel out of these places and out of harm's way, right? It's much more safer to do this. But we are also relying on autonomous ground and aerial platforms. These platforms will have situational awareness so they can analyze incoming threats and provide real-time feedback. A bias, if it is introduced into the model, at that stage could prove heavily consequential if not reviewed using the AI principles, right? And we've got to adopt layers of checks and balances. So there are other aspects which I'll come to, but I want to take a quick moment and think about what is responsible AI, right? What is responsible AI? It is understanding the strengths and weaknesses of AI. It is learning the possible issues and limitations and avoiding unintended consequences. Well, that's it. Super easy, right? Well, it is easier said than done for sure, but not impossible if smart people like you from all over the world make it a priority. When building an AI, we should make sure that it's built for everyone. It's never been the case, ever in human history. But wouldn't it be great if there was some platform or technology that can remove these inherent biases that we've all had to live with? And we have to really think about it, right? I'll give you an example. For example, what happened when a company tried to build an AI tutor to help kids learn online? So the programmers were told to create a tutor, apparently, that kids could relate to. And so they did. They decided to give their tutor what they called a synthetic personality. So what happens next? Kids really liked their tutor. They were really engaging with this tutor. The AI tutor was picking up on all sorts of learning from the kids. There was a lot of back and forth going on. At one point, students and developers both didn't actually realize that this is going on, but the students didn't know that it was not a real person. So at this point, let's stop and ask ourselves, what would happen if some AI bot like this happens to be built without the responsibility principles, without the security controls? AI could collect personal data, maybe test scores. It might lead to a data breach. AI could target the students, and it might all be for a benign reason to sell some product, but it would be without the student's consent or the parents' knowledge that this is happening. AI could release data to a third party, and suddenly the student is going to start getting advertisements for coffee, presumably, but it could get unauthorized access to the student's account. What would happen, right, if the AI did not disclose that it's not a real person? Students actually were found to be trusting the advice and authority of a computer program. And this is a real life example. The program was picking up from what the students liked and not liked. And because it was built to engage with the students, it started mimicking the language and behavior as it understood it. So it started saying offensive things that were racist and condoning hatred towards women. And these platforms are global, and there was massive usage. All this started happening within hours on a worldwide scale before the programmers even realized what was going on. So that's the impact of AI. And there are many interesting case studies. You could look up IBM Watson Education AI tutor case study, Tay, the chatbot, Microsoft's AI Twitter bot. They've taken it since, they've taken it, both of them have been taken down. But check out Google Duplex. It's an AI system for accomplishing real world tasks over the phone. It's essentially a virtual assistant, but it's super realistic. Apparently, I haven't used this, but apparently it even pauses like humans do, like, and all that. It's been introduced because Google thinks that that is part of sounding natural. Duplex claims to have an Irish heritage, and it even explicitly denies being a robot. So you make up your mind if that's deception or it's something we shouldn't care about. Siri, Alexa, other similar smart assistants are also.
I'm having trouble hearing. Can you say that again?
There you go. Their self-driving cars, conversational bots, and email spam filters are all examples of AI. When building AI applications, we should make sure that it is accountable and safe. It takes a lot of courage to do this. It's hard for us, but AI can and should be held accountable. So it helps humans keep everyone safe. At closing, I'd love to hear some of the use cases that you find interesting. You can type it here or post it on the hackathon page. And I have some self-reflection questions for you. This is something that I always find interesting, and I ask everybody whenever we talk about ChatGPT, what was the first question you asked or would ask an AI language model? I'd also ask myself, or share if you feel like, did you or anyone get any interesting responses from one of these GPT models and tools? What are some of the use cases for AI you find interesting? Maybe some are scary to us, but it's here to stay, and maybe we can collectively think about building some responsibility over those. Do you have any reading recommendations when you're thinking about AI? I found this good book that was recommended to me by my friend. It's called The Righteous Mind: Why Good People Are Divided by Politics and Religion. It's by Jonathan Haidt. It talks about AI, and so it kind of like is more about ethics and the way people make decisions, but it's also about AI. And that's the MIT um, uh, um, blog for computer language, which is quite interesting. They put like new topics every once in a while. And if you have any other questions, please feel free to ask them. Oh, I see some questions coming in. I have not tried ChatGPT 4. 3.5 is what I had. I think it might be premium for GPT 4. But I've heard a lot about it. And there are some very nice podcasts where people talk about the latest in GPT 4 and also the equivalent that is built by other companies. How do I use AI in my job? It is something that we are thinking about, and we're still waiting for further policy or guidance, because it is something that we see the potential, but it has to be done in a corporate wide, responsible manner. So I think every function, whether they are central functions or they are like client facing or they are in IT, is thinking about AI. So the first thing that I would do is to look at our current processes and see where I could maybe increase the maturity of the process, look to see some opportunities in there, but also wait for that corporate guidance by people who can kind of like give us our controls that we need before we start deploying. I would not put any company data into a chat GPT, for example. Oh, that's good to know. Yeah. The free GPT-4 requests. It's useful. I've used chat GPT to give me some examples. Google Workspace, right? The lab, where I tried to make today's presentation using that. Um, yes, I'm on LinkedIn, so please feel free to connect. Well, thank you, everybody. It was great. I really like the opportunity to be able to think about these things there are some nice courses that are available for free to learn about AI. It's just super fun. Bye. Have a good night.